Welcome to Problem Solvers, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. Please like and share the video.
Alright, so in this video we'll be making use of the RoboBrowser library in Python 3. So if you're familiar with Mechanize in Python 2, which is a web automation tool, it allows you to write Python scripts to automatically navigate to log into various websites. RoboBrowser is kind of the Python 3 answer to that. So we'll be taking a look at a very straightforward example of using RoboBrowser to navigate to a website, log into it using certain credentials, and extract information. And hopefully the goal of this website is for you to, while you might not care about this particular website, you might have a certain login form that you're trying to code a similar script for yourself. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to illustrate the approach that I use in this video, and that way you can manipulate the approach for your own purposes. So let me show you exactly what we want to do. So the website that I've chosen to log into and extract data from is this website called DataCoop. So I'm in no way affiliated with this website or company at all. It's just a website that has a pretty straightforward login page, and it seemed like a real example that someone might be interested in. So the business model of DataCoop, as I understand it, is individuals create accounts, associate their social networks, and essentially that association allows people to buy the data that is associated with the networks that are connected. So anytime someone buys your data through an association in this website, you get a cut of the money of someone buying your data. So these guys are kind of in the business of selling data. So I don't know what you feel about the ethics of that. I'll leave that to you. People do sign up for this voluntarily, so I assume the ethics are okay. But if you want to follow along with me in this video, you'll have to also create an account. And I understand if you if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. Again, the principles in this video should be applicable to other websites that have login forms. Okay, so let's go. If we click in the login link over here, that'll take us to a page that looks like this. We're going to be presented with a login form. It has some fields and a button. So basically the whole purpose of our script is to navigate to this website and to manipulate this form to fill in specific fields in this form, hit the sign in button, and if we do that, we'll be presented with this page once we're logged in. And what I want to do once we're logged in is extract this piece of information here to tell us to tell the user how much they've earned so far in their account. So it's a pretty straightforward script. It's just going to log in and then extract some information, and we're going to do that using Python's RoboBrowser. So let me navigate back to the script, and I'm just going to import RE first because I want to. We are eventually going to be using some stuff with regular expressions, and then of course we need to implement or import RoboBrowser. And now what we want to do is we want to create a browser object from RoboBrowser. So this thing will be kind of the driver for navigating and filling in forms and these sorts of things. So this is kind of the what we'll manipulate to kind of navigate through the website. So let me show you what I mean. So if I say br.open, this function open it takes an argument, which is a URL, and opens it, and from that after that point we'll be able to manipulate the HTML that is returned from that browser object. So the URL that we want to open in this case is this sign-in form here. So if I copy that link, go back here, paste it in, at this point the browser's opened this URL, and what we want to do now is we want to manipulate the form on the website. So what we want to do is we want to essentially isolate this form here and isolate these fields, fill in our username, password, credentials, and then sign in. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take a look at what the source looks like. And the best way that we can do that in either Mozilla or Chrome is if you right click over a field like email here, say inspect element, this will show us in the bottom here, essentially what that corresponds to in the HTML. So I've done that over the HTML, over the email field rather, and this tells me here that this corresponds to an input ID or field ID where the ID is specified as email. Likewise, if I do the same thing with password here, this will take me to the relevant place in the code where the ID for this specified field is also called password. And so both of these field elements are within a form, as you can see from this thing right here. So this form thing is sort of encapsulating everything. As you can see on the screen there, it's kind of highlighting everything in blue. So the form consists of these email, password, and sign-in fields. So what we want to do is we want to tell Python, take this form, fill in information in these fields, and then hit the sign-in button. So let's go back to our script, and we're going to say just that. So I'm going to say form is equal to br.getForm, and there's only one form on the page, so Python is going to know, or rather Robo Browser is going to know that when I say get form, that corresponds to the only form on the web page. If there are multiple forms on the page, in your particular case, there's ways to isolate and just get one specific form. It might be the first, second, or third, or nth form on the page, but since there's only one form for us, we can get by with just using this get form line here. And so now once we have the form, we want to tell Python that we want to send certain things to the fields in that form. And remember, the fields, the IDs of the fields that we care about are email and password. So we want to send it some things. So basically what we want to send it are the username and password for the account that we care about. So if you've created an account, you will have an email address associated with the account as well as a password. And at this point, you can just put those in there. Since I don't want to show what I guess the username is, or the password is, and in your particular implementation of this, if you're writing this for a client, you might want to abstract that information as well. What you can do is you can store the information in a config file, and basically that's what I've done. So I've created a Python file called config, which I'll import up here, and I'm just essentially telling Python I want the variable in the config file that corresponds to datacoup username, and in this case also config datacoup password. So config is going to look something like this, where we have a variable called datacoup username and datacoup password. So you're going to put in your credentials right here. So the email is going to go here, and the password is going to go here, and you'll save this particular file as config.py. And what you should do is you should store config.py in the same directory as the Robo Browser script. So in this case, a Robo Browser example is in the same file as a config file I've already coded up. Again, all you really need are to fill in these with your own credentials. Okay, so that is that. So now we've told Python to get the form on the page, fill in the fields of that form with the appropriate information, and then what we want to do is we want to submit the form. So Robo Browser is smart enough to know that the submit button that's on the website, this one here, is within the form and is also connected to the form. So it's smart enough to know just from the line that I wrote here that I'm telling the browser to submit the form, and I'm passing the specific form that I want to submit, which again is the only form on the page. So if we do that, we'll be presented with we won't be able to see any output, but we should be able to log into the website. So we, at this point, will be logged in, and we will have access to this website here. So what we want to do now is we want to extract this content here to tell us how much we've earned. So again, we can use a similar approach to what we did to consider the email and password fields, is we can right-click on this and say inspect, and this will tell us where this text is showing up. So we can see this text is showing up between two it's kind of sandwiched between these two li tags. So there's this li class header balance, and then earned, and then the number that we care about, and then a closing li tag. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to extract the stuff that's in between these two things. So just I want to point out that we're going to be using a regular expression to sort of extract what's sandwiched in between here. If the web developer decided one day to change something in the code that, for instance, this line differed in some way, or even if they decided to change the IDs of the email and password to like username and password instead of email, then our code that we have so far would not work. So these things are a little bit fickle because they're at the mercy of the person who is developing the website. And if you're developing something like this, you don't always have direct access to somebody who is in charge of the website. So just be wary of that if you're coding this up for your own purposes. If you're trying to write up a similar script to interface with a login form. Okay, so anyway, what we're going to want to do is we're going to go back to this page here. We're going to take this all of the source that is associated with this particular page. We're going to convert that to a string, and then we're going to parse that string until we find this line here. And we're going to use a regular expression to extract the number that we care about. So we're going to do that now. So I'm going to create a variable called src, or source, and it's going to return, or I'm going to call this br.parsed function. So this returns a very nicely parsed HTML output of the page that we are currently on. This converts that output to a string, and we store that string in this variable source. And so now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to extract the number that's between those li tags. So I'm just going to copy and paste variables start and end here. So start and end are variables that I've defined previously that correspond to the thing that precedes the number and the thing that follows it. So if we go back to the website here, again, the start variable corresponds to everything up to the colon, and then the end variable corresponds to the ending li tag. And what I want to do now is I want to do a regular expression that will allow me to extract the middle of that. And I've just copy and pasted this regular expression here. It's a little bit messy to write out, but it's not very complicated as to what's going on. Basically, I'm just using a regular expression to take what's sandwiched between start and end within the string source, which contains all of the source that was returned on that page, and I want to get the content that's in between there. So that's going to store that content in this variable result, and hopefully if I print result, that will give me the number that I'm after. So I'm going to just go over here, say Python robo browser example. Let's see, so there's a problem here. Oh, probably because I need to use Python 3. This is a Python 3 module after all. So let me try that again. So there's a warning, which is to be expected because this robo browser uses beautiful soup, and there's just this thing that if you in robo browser, I think that they don't use this LXML thing. There's a way to suppress this warning, but I haven't done so. But we don't really care about that for now. For the purposes of this video, we've extracted successfully the number that we cared about. So this very concise, short little code logged into our form, submitted it, extracted a particular piece of information that was on a page behind a login form, and then just printed that result out to the user. So hopefully this example was useful to you. Again, I in no way am associated with DataCoop. This was just a website that happened to have a pretty straightforward login page. I guess I could have picked a lot of different websites, but for whatever reason I just decided to go with this. Hopefully you can use kind of what the approach we showed here and adapt it to your own purposes for whatever scripts you might be writing. if there's any suggestions you have in terms of scraping or logging in or robo browser type of tutorials you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.